All right, 101 Part-Time Jobs has now reached 400 episodes. So thank you. Cheers for listening to this independent music podcast. One of the main reasons we've been able to keep going is because of our advertisers. The people that we work with share our messaging in supporting independent musicians and artists. So for the next few minutes, you're going to be hearing some branded messages from companies that we like, that we're working with. Thank you for your support and listening to this show. If you're looking to buy your next instrument, piece of music tech or accessory, look no further than Dawson's. Now with a brick and mortar store on the iconic Denmark Street here in London and online at dawsons.co.uk, Dawson's carries heritage guitars, Harmony, Mono and other major music brands like Fender, Martin Guitars, Marshall, Orange Amps and more. You'll hear on this show how guitars have songs in them. And it's true. I've been playing this Harmony Silhouette with Bigsby that you can hear beneath this. And I've now got to start a new band because the songs are flowing. So if you're looking to pick up something special, head to Dawson's on Denmark Street or online. And with the voucher code 101 Part-Time Jobs, you can claim 5% off the Dawson's online music store when you spend £100 or more. That's voucher code 101 Part-Time Jobs over at dawsons.co.uk. Happy playing! Hey, do you play in bands? I did for the longest time. And I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
Most tax pros leave a message.
It's Jane. I'm moving on to a TurboTax expert who beat your price. Adam Devine, tell him how I feel.
Hey, tax pro, she's been thinking twice. Best believe TurboTax will beat your price. This is a tax break.
Switch to a TurboTax Live expert and we'll beat what you paid your pro last tax season. Make the switch at turbotax.com/beatyourprice. TurboTax full service only. Sign up by 12/20/2024 and file by 4/1/2025. Full details at turbotax.com/beatyourprice.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
You're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs with me, Gilles Bidder. It's where we hear from musicians and artists about all the work that goes in behind putting out a record or going on tour, especially today in the streaming era. On today's episode, we hear from Galliano's Rob Gallagher. Galliano have just released their first album in almost 30 years, Halfway Somewhere it's called, and it's a journey around London. It's a real trip. Tracks are named after London touchstones. We're talking Lime Bikes, Tottenham, Kingsland Road, Euston Warehouse. It's a 19-track album. It's got loads of great grooves to it. And they're one of the first bands that brought together club and jazz culture, long been celebrated in both worlds. And this new record's come out on Gilles Peterson's Brownswood recordings. You can catch them later this month live if you're in the UK. 19th of November, Blues Kitchen, Manchester. 20th of November, Lantern Hall in Bristol. And the 22nd of November at Shepherd's Bush Empire, Shea Boo, here in London. So you can catch him live. This record's awesome. And it was great to chat with Rob to see what he's been up to the last 30 years. Cheers for listening to this episode. If you enjoy it, make sure you click subscribe. We put out 2 episodes every week with artists who we find exciting and interesting. And the plan is that we either bring you people you already know and love, or we introduce you to them. So hope you enjoy it. And after the jump, we're hearing from Rob of Galliano. 101 part-time
Clissold Park, though, in the summer, going skating in the summer up early with the, I mean, that's lovely.
It's perfect.
Yeah, totally. And they just got that park okay by the time our kids were the right age to go there. So yeah, we did. You were the one kind of like doing ollies off the top of the thing. We were the ones with the going, careful, careful. We're not going to Homerton again.
Do you know, I think skateboarding had such a profound impact on my life. I grew up skateboarding and then started playing in bands and then got obsessed with booking gigs on MySpace. And I sort of flunked all my GCSEs and A-levels as well because I was just booking gigs for my band. And we did tour a lot, but I just got obsessed with that. And throughout the years, I wrote for music magazines like Kerrang! And I had a column in the I paper for 9 years. And I always had that thing, but there was never really money in it. And so, a wise friend once said, money comes and goes. And
well, I found it goes. I'm not sure. Come is an interesting concept. I've got to get into that. But we had when Galliano, when we were first doing it, Spry, the percussionist, had been a professional skateboarder for quite a while, and so he brought that whole side when we came. I mean, I kind of got into it, in the 80s just by getting, someone broke in and got kryptonics and grip tape, and then we all became skateboarders for 2 weeks. But apart from that, it wasn't really. That was late 70s, I think. Yeah. But he had been through the whole Santa Cruz, and his mate had Bod, who had set up what company had moved to San Francisco. He was totally the whole culture. Yeah, he had metal plates in his ankle to prove it as well.
Was music a big part of skateboarding and that kind of subculture, I suppose? Did you see that? Yeah,
and they totally, and he was basically skateboarding, and it was that late 70s, 80s where the whole kind of punky energy was linked in with reggae. So his 2 big loves was skateboarding and going to Shaka. So, which was the same a bit with the guy, with Demas, who was his best mate, who mixed our album. That's what he was as well, kind of that, not in a serious way, but he was skateboarding for fun, but they were both totally into Shaka and going to Deptford every Friday on the bus from Camden. And so it was that, and then Bad Brains and all the rest of it come off that, and you're deep in that that skating thing, and off you go, isn't it? It's a whole culture that just goes round and round, doesn't it? It doesn't seem to stop, or is permanent.
And I see that with music, and I'll ever since growing up, going to South Bank and going to gigs and waiting outside the Astoria, trying to get the concessions. I've always had that feeling of like who are these people? How do they live? How do they get by? How do they manage to play music or skate or do whatever they do for so much of the week and survive? How do these people, is it living between the cracks? What is it?
Yeah, well, as my 20-year-old was, so he's basically, I've got to speak softer because he's probably just waking up. Okay. But he's just doing UK rap. So he was out yesterday filming his videos and doing his thing. But as he said, your lot have got all the houses, and you lot of, you cut. And I think the massive difference is from when I was 18 to when he's 18, you could live cheap. London was relatively cheap, and there were because just thinking about that skateboard, there were the squats and you could live cheap. These lot, I'm already, because I know it's about doing different jobs. I'm already looking at the job of extending, because how are my kids ever going to move out? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're back to the extended families and building out the back, and God knows if we can build out the back, but build somewhere, build another shed, and that is the big difference. I think it's kind of living cheaply now is an anathema.
Yeah. What's your story been with? I mean, it's been 30 years since Galliano made a record, and you must have been up to loads of different stuff and working with Gilles and DJing, doing stuff for Brownswood or Worldwide FM. I mean,
yeah, exactly. It's been it's been a juggle of kind of various ways to get through. I'm constantly in that I should have stopped properly at some stage and trained and then you can insert the billions of ideas and things you kind of half did. Yeah. But music got its hooks into me, and I look upon it as a kind of an affliction now, that you're afflicted with the idea that you have to do art and it's kind of important, and you're not sure if it's important just to you, or you deceive yourself that it's important to the world. And then as you get older, you realise you're stuck between those two poles, and you bounce around. So I've never actually gone and trained as a when lots of other people did, and I've managed to juggle being, getting into my late 50s on various, from building work. There's been a lot of building work, a lot of shoddy building work.
Working as a labourer?
Well, my brother kind of did a lot of, after Galliano ended last time. I mean, basically I was kind of juggling, doing emceeing with Gilles, doing various bands, and then the wonderful kind of little rays of sunlight when one of the best things I did was a project called William Adamson, which was Arts Council funded. And then suddenly you've got enough money to make a project and keep you going for a little bit, which is the promised land. But most times it's been like, working with my brother doing bathrooms. I'm strictly pass me that, and can you sand that down? And my greatest victory ever was there was these two St. Lucian plasterers who were so fast. They were on the stilts and they're shooting around this wall. And we were trying to get, what were you doing? I had to block up a doorway. And so he was helping me block it up. And he said, right, put plasterboard on that. I'm going to, and they were coming so fast. If I got the measurements wrong,
oh yeah,
everything would have stopped.
Yeah.
And then it's not funny because they're on time. They want to get off to the next thing.
Yeah.
And they so if you're holding the whole site, and that was sweaty palms, but I did it. That's
unforgiving.
Do you know what I mean? And I still look back upon that as one of my greatest achievements with them. And they were I just remember them eating. They didn't want to stop for breakfast or lunch, so they just ate fruit on the way round.
Okay.
So there'd be bananas and apple cores and a trail of that and plaster being mixed.
Yeah.
And then thank God it didn't pile up where I was doing the door. They managed to give me a nod, as in they thought I deceived them into thinking I knew what I was doing, rather than it being a luck.
Yeah, there's a lot of yesing, a lot of nodding.
Exactly. It was like, yeah. I was like, yeah.
I find those sort of relationships between the workers and the people who are contracting you to do it, might often be like landlords, right, or people who are money makers. I find that conversation, because those are two different worlds colliding right there.
Yeah, and it's an interesting kind of. You always think, I mean, it's the same thing I'm saying about the training. If you could just take a little bit of time out and devote it to whatever that business or that thing is, that might, you could do that, and then you wouldn't have to be going from bouncing around from one thing to the next.
Yeah.
But why don't you do it? I'm not sure, but I don't. I don't, guys. I just bounce.
Yeah, and people are struggling to pay rent. People don't have much time to learn or watch films or listen to music or have times reading.
Yeah.
Now it's like, fuck, how do I pay rent?
Well, and you know what? Maybe that I was watching one of my great inspirations is a poet, a lecturer called Mary Ruefle in the States. She does these great lectures, which are more like they're lectures, but they're entertainment really. And one of the I've got this book she did, Madness, Rack and Honey. She's a poet basically. It's all poetry based. And one of her things in there is wasting time. You need to waste time to get into that place where all those subconscious thoughts and where is art coming from, that whole thing, and in order to let that happen, it's like it's the classic in the shower one, you're relaxed and muscle memory and all the rest, and then suddenly the idea, well, where did that come from? Yeah. And it's that the idea of wasting time is so important. And I guess if you're thinking up, when you're going to train as the counsellor and then put that into operation, then you're not wasting time. You're not, and I'm I can waste time quite well, actually. In fact, some of the greatest wasters of time I've known have been very good at it, as in they're always doing something. And so you just got to go and get the shelves to varnish the thing that might be happening next week. And it's important to go and meet, what's her name, because she's got the thing of the thing. And you might just have to know about that to do that. And I just got to read this because, they're very good at it. So there's always a kind of dynamic to it.
There's a pressure now of just doing something, or even when you're telling your family, telling your friend, I feel like there's a pressure of having to sound like you've been doing everything. You've been setting the world to rights. You're the best worker that's ever existed. I read this letter that got printed in Private Eye a couple of months ago, and it was someone saying, what's all this thing about everyone just trying to look good all the time, and like as if doing stuff makes you a better person? If I don't want to I'd rather do nothing at all than do something that is unhelpful, i.e. making money for someone else. I'd rather do absolutely nothing. What's so bad about that was the point of this letter.
Yeah, well, and we're in this wage structure place where we live. So, I think art and engaging in ideas and all gives you the possibilities. So, the possibilities of, well, we don't have to be living like this. It's a choice, etc., etc. And, and then you start reading the Mark Fishers of this world or whatever, and you're off into late capitalism and what it demands and where we are and ideas and all the rest of it, and what the algorithms have given us and what they take away. And they've I wrote a lyric the other day. They fed us on the data and then we sped like money. Yeah. So it's like, is that right? In so many ways, the technology was going to free us up. And I think in many, and it does have the potential. There's this guy, Paul Mason, who wrote a book, Post-Capitalism, and he's kind of the good life or the flourishing life that Aristotle was talking about, what it is to be human, isn't maybe actually that far away. And he thinks that technology and, do give you the way that you can, get there without there having to be the revolution, etc.
There can be a friendly way into it.
Well, technology gives you the possibilities so we can have that good life without having that. Well, and then, question mark, but we need the money. Money. We're back to money.
Yeah.
So it's like it's how to juggle those. And at the moment we're just in. You do need the money. So hence the jobs, hence the all the other things that bounce off that. But although maybe it's like I have started thinking, in a way, just thinking about that wasting time thing. At the moment, I make most of my jobs in racking, which is basically you go to big warehouses and you work with other. At the moment, it seems to be more older guys, but it used to be younger guys. And you put racking it, but that does mean your mind, when you're not making sure that it's all safe and can go off and start tripping around the place. So I'm a terrible daydreamer, and it's back to that same thing about wasting time, in a great way.
You've got to be careful if you're racking heavy items.
Yes, that's where it doesn't work. Yeah, that's where it's like Rob. Is it what? Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's you. Yeah. Oh God, I know. It's like. Well, I was there the other day, and do you know a scissor lift? It's one of those lifts that goes up like that.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Obviously, it comes down. So, and it does stop. It stops, and then it starts beeping. So no one's got their hand underneath it. Because who would be stupid enough to lean on a scissor lift? Yeah, well, it's me when I'm thinking about kind of, wait a minute, maybe I can. So it's like, it's like, are you near that? No.
I think that about driving, because it's that thing like, I don't know if you drive, but, you drive home from somewhere and then you get back, you make yourself a cup of tea and you're like, you can't really remember the route that you had. And there's something strange, mysterious that goes on in your brain after you've driven that you are concentrating because you're looking left and right at the roundabouts, but you're not sort of concentrating in that sort of full way you might be concentrating when you're reading a book, for example. It's it's some kind of autopilot.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. The autopilot. Yeah, the muscle memory autopilot.
Which is scary.
Which is scary. It's so great to listen to music. Yeah. The music makes total sense when you drive. Yeah, totally. No, you see, that is an idea I like the idea of. Who gave me, that was another job I never actually, this guy got me hummus deliveries in the North London area. You had to make 7 deliveries before 2:00 or something. But I actually thought, I could maybe do that. But then my right leg has developed into not wanting to push the accelerator up and down. It kind of triggers off a nice sciatic. So I thought, no, I won't be doing that. But that was the idea. I'd be going around listening to music, listening to podcasts. That's another great invention, actually. The podcast. So I'm quite into just putting those on and yeah. And
you feel like you're learning something, don't you?
Yeah, and you're off into your worlds. Mm-hmm. It's back to the kind of way, it's like you build your own worlds. I mean, that's what you're doing the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's the ability to build the world.
101.
There's songs on the new record titled and about sort of different areas of London, like Kingsland Road and Euston Warehouse. And I think of building your own world, London can be a really tricky place to do that But it feels like to me, once you've sort of peeled off enough layers of the onion, you can start doing it. And I'm thinking about putting on a gig because you've befriended the landlord at the local bird's nest, and they're like, oh yeah, you can put on a gig, I won't charge you. You know, that is an inroad into building your own world, because all of a sudden, you know, you can do something and it doesn't cost you £100 or whatever.
Yeah, totally. And maybe the history of London is people just building their own worlds. I mean, I love the psychic geography thing as well. I got deep into that and doing walks that meant things, and kind of, in fact, that my favorite ever psychic geography story was Echo and the Bunnymen in the 80s. And what's his name? Who did the KLF? Jimmy Carty and another guy. I think he was round here, or was it Jimmy Carty was around? He spent lockdown in the Turkish barbers around the corner. Really? And was writing stuff from there, and wrote a book. That's right, he wrote a book in there during lockdown. He'd sit on the couch, probably illegally, you know, as the Turkish barbers ignored restrictions, and was doing that. But he did when he would. This is in the 80s. He made Echo and the Bunnymen do a tour of bunny ears around England, which sounds like a great. And then once you'd got that, you couldn't diverge. You know, I'm not sure why you couldn't diverge, but the vibes wouldn't be. The god of the psychic geography bunny ears would look with displeasure. But that meant you suddenly had to do this huge journey. You know, so instead of doing Liverpool and Manchester the next day, you couldn't do that. You had to do Edinburgh because the bunny ears went.
I mean, talking about making our own world, KLF are one of those bands that, you know, when anyone learns about them, or, you know, sees the film or reads that book that was put out about them, you're like, why aren't more people doing this?
Man, yeah, that's when. And I think I was reading that the apex came when they were about to do the Brits or something, and they were going to get an award, and so they used to just, you know, push each other to extremes. Yeah. And this extreme went from that to that to that to that. And then one of them was going to cut off his hand and throw it into the audience. You know, it got to those levels. And
they were going to bring out a dead pig, weren't they? Or a dead animal.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. It was that. It was that kind of. And apparently, all they ever get asked now is, "Why did you burn £1 million?"
Yeah.
You know, which of course there isn't an answer to. You know. You know. Why did you burn £1 million? It's kind of like, you know, it just goes around. But that's the wonderful thing about it, I guess. It just goes round and round, and you know, there can't be an answer. I mean, it's like odd positions of things.
That's exactly what you said about, you know, we don't want to live like that. We don't want to live to the expectations of us. That kernel of that idea that I think people develop when they're teenagers. Yeah. Like, no, I don't want to do that.
And maybe. So instead of because I'm just thinking, just speaking about different things you do, and that enables you to do what you want to do. I mean, if you took the money side away, so I didn't have to think about money, there's actually, it's wonderful doing lots of different things.
Yeah.
Well, it has been up until now. You kind of, then you find that no one tells you that your body starts actually aching a little more than earlier than you thought. But if you take the kind of money and just not having to lift heavy things up, you know, it's maybe wonderful doing lots of different things. And I mean, my brother's the same as me. He was he was a teacher first, so you know, we had a great, and then he became a plumber. And now he's racking and doing all. He got given the genes in the family, so he had to plaster you know, he didn't want to play to have his kitchen plastered, so he went away and did the course in plastering, and then he's a plasterer. He's that. You know, it would just be falling on me, and it doesn't work. But that means he has got, that's what I'm thinking of, many different jobs. So, you know, we really confused one guy once. We were underneath a toilet with wrenches, and And I'm going, so what is it about the Greek philosopher? And he's explaining, he's trying to, make me understand the difference between Plato and his ideals in his case, while the wrench, and you saw the guy outside with the tea. Like, who are these freaks?
But it points to me, if I think about all the different things that I've done, I've all learned something from each of them.
Exactly.
Things that I didn't expect to learn.
Yeah. And maybe that's things you didn't expect to learn as well. Yeah, no, it complete, and also gives you that. It gives you, an experience. I mean, maybe it will be good in an ideal world for everyone to do different jobs every 10 years. I mean, I love the idea. It wasn't this time, that it was the election before. I think it was, what's her name, who's the Labour with the long ginger hair from Manchester. I've forgotten her name. Anyway, was shadow education, and was like, at 50, you get a sabbatical.
Yeah.
Everyone can get, and you can go off and you can do your 2 years, whatever of what it is. I love that idea. So, you can swap around ideas and you can become different things. And, I mean, for your generation, much more that I asked what, when I was kind of at school, what do you want to be? Mm-hmm. That was what you were going to be. Yeah. Whereas now, that's not, it's reinvention is almost like the necessity.
Reinvention is like a common theme in music. I mean, talk about like the big sort of rock stars of like legacy music. I'm thinking Bowie, and obviously the reinvention there. I think that must have filtered down to all kinds of music and bands being like, okay, we've made one record that sounds like that. What's the next part of the story? I mean, KLF reinvented themselves, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you and your mates and your bands, did you have that in you where you were like maybe a bit industrious, or you wouldn't call it that at the time, but you'd think, okay, what are we doing now? What's the next thing? What's the next world that we're building? Did you do any of that?
I'm not sure consciously, but definitely just by doing different things, you do. Yeah. I mean, it's almost if I've been in so many different things, exploring, probably slightly different ways of maybe the same route. I'm just thinking, but maybe not as well. So so definitely, a Bowie reinvention goes on through the whole life, and he's in many ways I just think of him and his death as well, and how he used that as an art expression as well. So it's like he's almost the exemplar of that reinvention. But yeah, I mean, we all do, in his case. That's what I'm thinking during this conversation. It's maybe a great thing to reinvent and explore different things and maybe that's what, we're meant to be, if you just think of a governmental strategy, that's maybe what the main thing is. The state enables us to try different things without having to worry about money, because we all have to reinvent ourselves the whole time. Yeah. Jobs aren't for life now. Yeah. And increasingly, if with universal income and all the rest of that, different. I mean, my kids, that's what I'm thinking now, just skill up in different ways out of UK rap and see where it's going to go, because I don't think anyone knows where it's going to go. We're definitely stepping in. We're way over the line, and it's like, where are we going?
Yeah. It's like the toothpaste is out of the tube, isn't it?
The toothpaste is definitely out of the tube.
I mean, it's kind of scary, and I think, like, what do I do to not be scared about it? And the truth is, I do get scared about it. And if I'm speaking to my partner, and it's like, she's working various jobs, and like she's working at the cafe at the moment, and it's like, it's scary. Like the future is really, really fucking scary. And I think the way when I'm not feeling scared about it is just when I'm trying not to think about it, or I'm busy doing other things.
Yeah, and get. I mean, this was one of the themes in a way on the album. Give us back the future. It's like, I definitely, growing up in the 70s and 80s, we had a future that was, one kind of everyone wearing silver in the year 2000, and another, it was, the effects of where we were going was benign, and it was going to be all right. The future was going to be all right. Now the future is not going to be all right, and it's that sense of we need the future. And in many ways, I think, though, as well, it's what we were speaking about before, possibilities, and the possibilities of what humans can do and how that flourishing life is enabled, and what we can do to enable it ourselves, and what the state can give us as well, and maybe what we need to get out of the way. I mean, at the moment, I'm kind of like thinking, get the frigging mad algorithms out of the way so we don't have, kind of madness going on in the riots in the streets. It's like, I mean, how the hell, and you're like, well, okay, so we do need to get stuff out of the way as well. It's like, but, it's like maybe we are, I'm definitely got, I think we are all different people as well. There's a lot going on inside. Mm-hmm. So, we're not one thing. We're not one person. We're not, so in that way, give vent to the 10 others inside you wanting to do their thing as well. The kind of like, and like a kind of great friend, Andrew Weatherall, who unfortunately passed as well. His thing was, I enjoy making things. I like making things. So whether it's music, whether it's a lino cut, and it's the same with me, whether it's I'm doing artwork or I'm doing music or I'm just thinking or whether I'm at work and I've just made this thing and we put the shells on and you leave it and it's just, I just made that. You still get this. So maybe there's a lot of different, manufacturing voices in you, just wanting to make whatever and make a good dinner, and you put that out in the world. But it all comes back to, at the moment, we are all looking for the wage to keep us ticking. And as we know, money isn't in the wage; money is in the wealth and all the rest. So the money stays where the money is.
I think like it sounds a bit like I don't know, romantic, but it's when you make something with love. And I mean, make it with love, as in you make it in that sort of mysterious good belly feeling, whether it's a lino cut that Andrew Weatherall's making, whether it's a jazz record, or whether it's making your partner or your son dinner that night. There is something in there that you kind of can't fail if it comes from that place.
Yeah, I like mysterious good belly feeling. Yes, we should follow that line down right there. Yeah, mysterious good. Yeah, because it's mysterious because you don't exactly know what is, and belly feeling because it's of the body, and we are bodies, and we have embodied minds. So I'm quite into it's the same with dance. I mean, that's another thing on that, what is going on there when we are doing that. It's a mysterious belly and head and leg and all the rest of it feeling, and that's slightly out of control, and something is impelling you to do it, which is maybe the same, what you were alluding to, whatever it is. It's that, because what is love? I mean, that's the biggest mysterious thing of all, but is that the same thing we're talking about, whether we're talking about, the propulsion to do a job, to be with someone, to do whatever, we use that word love because it is a mysterious thing. We are in time and space. We don't know what the hell's going on. We think the present is the present, but even the sunlight is 8 seconds old from the sun. So it's like we're all over the place, but we don't think we're all over the place. That's humans attach meaning to make it all seem like, oh yeah, okay, I think we know what's going on. We haven't got a clue what's going on. But it's like, so we need to waste more time, Giles. That's what it is.
That's the answer.
101 part-time jobs, 101 part-time jobs.
Hey, you playing Shepherd's Bush, is it, at the end of November?
Shepherd's Bush on the 22nd. So
Wow.
He says a very unconvincing way. It's sometime around there.
What a place. What a building. What a room.
Yeah, I've reached an age where I actually can't think whether we've played that before or not. I think we did it. I think we have. Yeah. And so we do it. So Shepherd's Bush. Yeah, it'll be great. It's like the old Astoria, one of those old kind of, music hall places that became cinemas that has ended up still being able to do concerts, So, music hall would be part of,
Yeah.
There's a lot of music hall in Galliano. I think that the Galliano voice has always inhabited some music hall within it. So, it's always music hall, back in the music hall. Yeah.
Astoria was my favourite, for sure. What were your favourite?
Astoria was great. Yeah, no, the Astoria was great. And it had everything, remember going to, in fact, that was one of my mad memories. This is in prime acid house period, and Nicky Holloway did what was it called? Sin, I think it was called Sin. And there was like everyone's started ecstasy, so you had a lot of people there all spilling out of the doors, and so it's right on Tottenham Court Road, and there were loads of people there
Dancing in the fountain outside.
Dancing generally around, and kind of it had gone into an anarchic kind of, and I remember the police turning up and not quite knowing what the mood, because everyone's on E, so it's a weird. So there was people taking, their hats and their helmets and putting them on, but it had all gone into a kind of, where are we? Where is this? Because it wasn't, it wasn't football. It was kind of like, although it had that undercurrent as well, because it's the same, the same terraces were now in the clubs, but now everyone's on E, so it was a weird land of, we've just gone into something else. And the police were really confused about what to do. And maybe that story is a nice metaphor for, what's his name, who writes about, on the dance floor, he retromania, and I've forgotten his name. That point in, what's his name?
Well, Emma Warren, but she's not. She's a she.
Well, Emma's great, but this is what's his name? I'll think of it in a minute. But it's that point in time that promised so much, and in a way delivered, and in a way couldn't or didn't, because it needed to go into something else to force change. Because you get into your dialectics, and at some stage change has to be forced. Or 30 years later, me and you were talking about having to make money still on weird jobs delivering hummus in the Walthamstow area.
Just to end with, I'm a big fan of like sort of fucking up in the workplace. You mentioned earlier leaning on the crane. I drove Chinese food around, and on my first shift, I blocked my car in, right? On my first shift delivering Chinese food in Exeter, which is a very hilly town. And I was staying at a friend's house, and my mate had like literally a kid's bicycle. And so I was delivering Chinese food on a kid's bicycle going up and down. And all those deliveries that night that were soup-based, the soup would end up out the box at the bottom of the box. Anyway, I think of those times when you think, oh my God, if I get to the end of today or the end of this shift, I've done all right. I've done okay. I've survived the day. Do you think, what does that provoke in your mind? Do you think of any, have you got any memories of moments where you thought, okay, if I get to the end of today, throughout whatever I've got to do right now?
I have had. I remember. So one of the first jobs I had when I left school was. In fact, what's making me think of it? We were doing Rough Trade East gig last week or the week before, and I was speaking to someone in the crowd, and then suddenly this voice next to him went, do you fancy doing any removals? And I looked around, and it was Wayne, who was my boss. Well, when I say boss, he was 2 years older than me and had a van. When I left school, and he did removals. So I've just passed my driving test, and I'm about 19, I suppose, and we are working for, this is 1980, maybe 1981. And there's lots of Japanese people moving into kind of North London, around Finchley, I think, somewhere around there. Anyway, he's got a van, and we are now working for Mr. Kuwahara. It's amazing what your mind will remember. So we're working for Mr. Kuwahara, and there's an underground car park. So so Wayne looks at me, and he's stopped our van out. It's a big Luton van, and we got to unload. Mr. Kuwahara's van, which was a little van, just needs to be put in the underground car park. And of course, me, in my bravado of 19, I can drive now. So I can do that. So I was concentrating on getting it into the car park and accelerate, brake, right, know what I'm doing. Of course, I'm not looking up at the height of the car park.
No.
So that is 19-year-old idiot wedges Mr. Kuwahara's van in underground car park by not looking.
Skirt.
Yeah, that was. So I do remember that as an early kind of, if I can just make it through the day, we'll be doing it. If I can
How do
make
I make this go away?
Exactly. If we can make this, I can go out. Yeah. Those days I was just going out at night all night and then getting up in the morning and going to sleep in the van. So
yeah, I know that feeling. Yeah.
Another kind of job.
So that was Rob Gallagher from Galliano. Their new record, Halfway Somewhere, is out now, and you can catch them live at the end of the month in Bristol, Manchester and London. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you click subscribe or tell a friend. We've got all kinds of sounds and all kinds of guests on this show. We'd love to have you along for it. Cheers.
101 Part-Time Jobs is hosted by Giles Bidder and produced by me, Olivia Swash. This has been a Mighty Moon Media production.